I've been doing a little research and I want to share some of the information I found with you about inflammation. And when you run a Google search um, with the keywords cause of all diseases, the, the whole first page that you'll get on that search deals with inflammation. And I also want to talk about curcumin, which is apparently the best product available for dealing with inflammation. In a study published by research for the Academic Medical Center in Amsterdam, with over 200,000 patients studied, inflammation was determined to play a key role in the risk of heart failure. They found that subjects that were provided with substances that help reduce inflammation had a large reduction in the risk of developing heart failure. In my opinion, it is probably inflammation by itself that is the driving force behind the development and progression of most cardiovascular disease, according to Dr. Michael Eads. But the association is much broader than just heart disease. According to the Cancer Research Institute at the University of California in San Francisco, inflammation is a critical component of tumor progression. Many cancers arise from sites of infection, chronic irritation, and inflammation. It is now becoming clear that the tumor microenvironment, which is largely orchestrated by inflammatory cells, is an indispensable participant in the neoplastic process fostering proliferation, survival, and migration. In other words, not only is inflammation a factor in the risk of cancer developing, but inflammatory cells can be a major participant in the risk of spreading the cancer. But the risk of deadly killers that are associated with this common factor is far from finished. According to the Center for Disease Control in the United States, diabetes is the sixth largest killer, and experts say that inflammation plays a big role in the risk of developing this disease. Over 1,800 studies have established inflammation as both the cause and result of diabetes, clearly revealing a cycle that must be broken for the condition to improve. Studies funded by the National Institutes of Health have documented the cascade of inflammatory reactions that are associated with the onset of diabetes. I've just provided a minuscule portion of the evidence that inflammation is a risk factor of three of the most dreaded killers you can get. But this is just a drop in the bucket. Inflammation is involved in the risk of developing virtually every ailment you can think of. Besides the big ones I've mentioned, such as heart failure, diabetes, and cancer, it's also suspected in everything from kidney disease, every kind of autoimmune sickness, to painful joint and spinal problems, and Alzheimer's. But it's even worse than that. Scientists are now realizing it's actually causing us to age. Department of Aging and Geriatric Research, University of Florida, Gainesville, says that no genes exist that have been selected to promote aging. Although aging itself is not a disease, numerous diseases are related, such as cancer, Alzheimer's disease, arteriosclerosis, metabolic disorders, and others, likely caused by low-grade inflammation driven by oxygen stress and manifested by increasing levels of pro-inflammatory cytokines such as IL-1, IL-6, and TNF-alpha, echoed by genes activated by transcription factor NF-kappa B. It is believed that aging is plastic and can be slowed down by caloric restriction as well as by some nutraceuticals, as the low-grade inflammatory process is believed substantially to contribute to aging. Slowing aging and postponing the onset of age-related disease may be achieved by blocking the N-kappa B-dependent inflammation. A 2012 Carnegie Mellon University study summary said that stress wreaks havoc on the mind and body. Until now, it was not clear exactly how stress influences disease and health. Now, researchers have found that chronic psychological stress is associated with the body losing its ability to regulate the inflammatory process. The research shows for the first time that the effects of psychological stress on the body's ability to regulate inflammation can promote the development and progression of disease. Stress contributes to inflammation, and inflammation promotes the development and progression of disease. It's a medical version of the unified field theory in physics. Many scientists now believe that most, or perhaps all, chronic diseases may have the same trigger, inflammation. It has been linked to everything from heart attacks and strokes to type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, cancer, and many more. Chronic low-grade systemic inflammation, fueled by disorders such as excessive belly fat, poor diet, lack of exercise, smoking, and gum disease, may explain why lifestyle-linked diseases have reached epidemic levels in Western countries while remaining rare in the developing world. So, if inflammation is a factor in developing and the progression of all these diseases, and you have one of these diseases or are prone to it, or just don't want to get it, what kind of medicine would you take to eliminate the inflammation? If you go to the doctor, there's basically two categories of drugs. There's your corticosteroids, which are the gold standard, and then there's the NSAIDs like naproxen, and they're the standard treatment for inflammation. And the doctors are real stingy with those drugs because they're not good for you. The better they work, the less good they are for you, and the less period of time they want you to stay on them. But they will give them to you sometimes if they think they can interrupt the inflammatory cycle enough to do you more benefit than the drugs that they're going to give you to do that will do to you. So, is there something better out there? It turns out, yes, there is. Curcumin is the most studied plant on the planet. There's been over 2,500 peer-reviewed scientific studies done on curcumin. And it turns out that nothing eliminates inflammation better than curcumin. A 2012 study revealed that a highly bioavailable form of curcumin was more effective in alleviating rheumatoid arthritis symptoms, including tenderness and swelling of joints, than the drug that is the standard treatment. Not only that, those who were taking the curcumin only actually experienced the most improvement across the board. Along with relieving the most symptoms, the curcumin group had another benefit: lack of any observed side effects. No one in the curcumin group withdrew from the study due to side effects, but 14% of those on the NSAIDs group did so. Researchers noted, interestingly, the curcumin group showed the highest percentage of improvement, and those scores were significantly better than the patients in the Voltaren group. More importantly, curcumin treatment was found to be safe and did not relate with any adverse events. Our study provides the first evidence for the safety and superiority of curcumin treatment in patients with active rheumatoid arthritis. A study in 2013 looked at all these studies, all 2,500 of them, to see if there was any safety issues that had been identified in any of them. And their conclusion was that it is safe. And India agrees with that too, because millions of people eat turmeric, which is the plant curcumin comes from. It's a spice used in curry and other Asian foods. Another recent study to find out why curcumin works so well for osteoarthritis patients, scientists learned that inflammation uses and actually sends out messages for and deposits stockpiles of fat for a food supply. They learned about this cycle that is formed. So with the fuel in place, you get more inflammation, which causes more injury, which causes more inflammation, which calls for more fat, which fuels more inflammation, and the cycle goes on and on. So interrupting that cycle is crucial for any kind of healing process. When administered to mice that developed Alzheimer's symptoms, curcumin decreased inflammation and reactive oxygen species in the rodent brains, researchers have found. The compound also inhibits the aggregation of troublesome amyloid B strands among the animal's nerve cells. They found that it actually even broke up these strands that were in clumps. And there's a lot of Alzheimer's studies going on right now. In 2012, a study investigating whether curcumin could prevent the development of neuropathic pain in rats with chronic constriction injury of the sciatic nerve. Their conclusion was, Treatment with curcumin during the early stages of peripheral neuropathy can prevent the development of chronic neuropathic pain.